trust your instinct. That very first thing that comes into your mind. And I can speak about this from relationships. I can speak about this as you raise children for people who've got children. If there's something that's out of whack, don't ignore it, because what you're doing is you're cultivating a longer period before you actually, it's going to just take you longer to recover when you eventually get the truth, because the truth will come. Okay. Number 4, life lessons. Nurture relationships. So critical. And I think mature relationships understand that Nyenge and I don't have to talk every day. We can talk once in six months, but that 10 minutes that we talk, or that hour, or that 5 hours is what it needs to be. So I think we shouldn't put boundaries on we shouldn't just nurture relationships, build them, respectful relationships, understand and meet the people where they are, and allow people to meet you where you are. So for me, in parts of my healing journey from the stuff that I've been going through over the past couple of years, is acknowledging I'm crumbling, I'm not okay, and when you tell somebody I'm not okay, you're also giving them an opportunity to also minister to you.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I just want to say thank you again for the community and for the new subscribers and emails. I'm loving the comments and also the people that you want, the types of topics that you want us to cover. I'm really excited about how this community is growing every day. So please encourage your aunts, your sisters, your cousins, your friends to all subscribe. And it's just nice to see everybody who's joining the community. So today I have another exciting guest that a lot of you had asked for. It was really nice to finally get her while she's in the country. This has been going back and forth, I think, since,
It's been a minute.
It's been quite a while, trying to get her here. But Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited.
I finally sit on the yellow couch, my guy. Finally, we made it.
You finally made it. Oh,
I'm
just so happy to have you. So, Yvonne, can you introduce yourself to our guests, those ones who don't know you, who you are, what you do, what you're about?
I'm many things, but let's keep it simple. I'm Yvonne Mtengwa. So, Yvonne Mtengwa. I'm a communications strategist by profession. I am mostly known for my role in the travel space. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Travel Essence magazine. My most, I think the hat that I love the most, that I wear with the utmost pride, is that I'm a mom to 2 beautiful human beings.
Oh, wow.
Age 15 and 12. Daughter, sister, friends.
Oh.
I'm all of these things and more.
And
we're still discovering stuff. So.
We continue to evolve, and find ourselves. So that's pretty neat. I love all the many hats that you wear, and especially the travel essence, the travel space.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. I just want to go back to your childhood, how you grew up and how it influenced what you're currently doing.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. I can kind of work my way around that question, which is great. So, a firstborn child, 3 children in our family.
Oh, so deputy parents.
So I'm a deputy parent, 2 brothers that come after me. Raised by a dad who was a banker. My mom was a nurse. My parents were middle income earning parents. We grew up in Mount Pleasant. I went to North Park School. I used to ride my little bike to school. I really grew up around a strong sense of community. The typical, you go to church on Sunday, Our Lady of the Wayside Church on the...
So you're Catholic.
I was. And then I think my parents just had aspirations for their children to go overseas and fly, right? So went to high school. High school I've got fond memories of being at Chizzy in an all-girls school as a boarder. But to sort of circle back to how I got into travel, growing up, my parents made it a point that they would give us as much exposure as they could. So it was never a holiday where the whole holiday were at home. I remember my dad had a white box sunny, and we would take road trips. Or on Sundays, on weekends, we would do Sunday cruises. We used to call Sunday cruises, where we just bundle up in the car and we drive further up in the northern suburbs of Harare.
Wow.
Pleasant. He would take us through Borrowdale and then all the way to Greystone Park, into Glenlawn, and you're literally just studying people's homes. Oh, look at this big house. Look at how nice it is out here, these hills and whatever. And then on holidays or your long weekends, Nyanga, driving to Mashingo, or if it's a trip to Kumusha, it would then become, after we finish Kuruts, we're going to go to drive all the way to Chiredzi so you can see the gorgeous. So I grew up just always on the road. My folks always took us on the road. And I think that's what gave me that sense of spirited adventure. We were always, mom, dad, and the kiddos in the back seat going on a cruise somewhere.
Wow. So your dad really influenced your traveling and your inquisitive mind.
I mean, my dad, bless his heart, he's good to boy who married a Bulawayo girl, and they created a life for themselves. And they were the oldest in their families of the siblings. So they were deputy parents too. I think my dad was like a family of 9 and he was number 2. My mom was number 1 in a family of 8. Like big families back in the day, you know how that was. So we always had people in the house, aunties, uncles, my parents' siblings. So I think that the traveling and going to different places was their way of connecting with us and, spending time with us and kind of seeing how we're getting on and all of that. So, yeah.
So a very stable childhood, really.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm really grateful. I have such fond memories of my childhood. It was lovely. I still have fond memories of the ice cream man and the little lions, what was lions?
Lions and
dairy boards.
Yeah, they used to come with
the bell and all of that, and being able to get out of the gate and find an auntie with my frizzets in her cooler box and buying them for like 10 cents or whatever. All of those things are memories that I wish we could share those with our kids now, but they obviously it's a lot different now. So, yeah.
So you grew up in Mount Pleasant, went to Chuzzy, and then you went for uni overseas.
Yes. So I went to uni in Atlanta. Got accepted into university after my O-levels. But then my folks felt that it was too early. And just to backtrack, because we lived in Mount Pleasant, so near the university, we used to host American students that were coming into the country on exchange programs. So beyond having aunts and uncles in the house, we had these American students. I think that was where the multicultural aspect started to creep into our lives, because they would come on these exchange programs for 3 months, 4 months, and we were a host family. So that's what kind of piques the whole, there's a world outside Zim, there's a world beyond South Africa, and there's the US, By the time we went to the US for the first overseas trip, I think I was in Form 3. That was our first big trip abroad. We spent maybe 2 weeks in Europe and another 3 weeks in the States. It was a long tour, but I do know that my parents really put a lot of resources into making that trip come true. So it was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would say you had a privileged childhood.
I would say, I think it would be unfair to say not. I think I definitely acknowledge the fact that I had it better than most.
And what do you think were the advantages? I mean, when you look back at that and you look at where you are today, what do you believe were probably the advantages or the life lessons that you learned from your childhood that you still carry right now?
I think exposure is such a powerful thing. I don't think exposure needs to be something as long drawn out as let's go overseas. I think it's anything that challenges us to try something new that is outside of our normal conventional selves. I can sit with you for an hour and learn so much about a world outside of my own. I can sit with somebody else for an hour or 30 minutes. There's always an opportunity to learn. So I think for me, exposure is a big part. It was so deeply ingrained in us to always want to learn, to always want to understand. If I go back into some of the family albums, things like dancing with some of those traditional dances at Chapungu village, for example, or going to Great Zim, and then after the tour, you learn a little bit. But we always wanted to learn. We were always taught to try to understand and to learn more. And even now, with my children being a bit older and having grown up overseas, it's one of my quests to show them as much of Zim as they can now that they're old enough to understand it. I think for us, we started quite early on. My children haven't grown up here. they definitely have a deeper sense and better understanding now of Zim life and Zim culture and even learning the language, Shona and all of that. But exposure, I think, is that one thing that sort of just put me on the trajectory that I'm on. I always wanted to just understand what is it that I don't know and how can I learn.
Okay, you learn.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
And now that you're stationed in Dubai.
Yes.
But you travel so much because of your job. Tell me how you got into, so you went to Atlanta for uni.
Uh-huh.
What did you study? How did you then move from the States to Dubai? And how did you get into this career? And what did you have to do? What did you have to study? So we can just help people out there.
Yeah. I actually went to school pre-med, funny enough.
Oh.
I went in full press code pre-med. Did you know how does it go? But doctor,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a time when they wanted to get a doctor and a lawyer.
Exactly. So, I was a pretty hardworking student in school. My grades kind of paved the way for me. Got over there and my first year, I was in pre-med. And then I think into my second year, I was like, oh no, I don't want to be in a hospital, and walking down the hallways of hospitals and wearing the white trench coat and all of that. And then also just understanding how long that program was. I have friends who literally have just now started practicing, and I'm 42. Wow. So I can't imagine from that time still doing residency and this and that and ish. I feel like I just want to go long. So I quickly switched. I quickly pivoted, and I think the thread in my life is there's a lot of pivots. There's a lot of pivots. There's a lot of I like to classify myself as somebody who tries just about everything, and then I'm able to distill what works for me and what doesn't. So for me, I went in as pre-med. Within the first year, I was like, nope, no bueno. I had a quick conversation with my folks. I'm changing my major. Major became business.
How old were you at this time?
I was 18, 19. Got out of university, started working. I started working in retail. I think within the typical stuff when you're starting off, you start working. I think I worked in Gap, I worked in Wet Seal, I worked in all these retail stores, the typical mall job, because I was studying and also wanting to have a bit of pocket money and things. And then from then on, while I was working in retail, within 3-4 months, I was promoted to a management role. So it's quite quickly on because I like people. So I was quite, dynamic in that sense. My dad lost his job in banking here. And then it was a turn of when things were hectic in Zim, when the economic downturn began. So it was a conversation. I remember my folks actually traveled to the US to sit me down and say, Dad's not in the bank anymore. So we're going to have to change this thing around. We don't have the luxury of a requisition. Yeah, I need money for this, my fees, I need this, I need that. It was okay. We need to figure out how to transition until we get you back on track. And then at that point, my younger brother was also coming to uni. So then that's when I think I became a deputy parent for real, because my sibling then came and I felt the strong sense of responsibility to support my parents, to help him go through school. He actually ended up graduating before me.
Oh, wow.
Because I had to drop out because of the whole fees thing, but I was working. And what that did for me is I did quite well in retail for about 2.5 years. While I was still in university, before I even dropping out, I had my first internship with CNN. So it makes sense later. I was in the newsroom. So during the September 11 attacks, I was in the newsroom as an intern in working under Tumi Machabo, if you remember Tumi Machabo.
Yes, I remember Tumi.
Yeah. So I was scribing and all of that stuff. So I learned a lot about the pulse of being in a newsroom, yet notwithstanding that it wasn't my major. So again, I always like to learn new things. I said, of course, I want to go and see it, So I worked at CNN Center for like a year as an intern. And then somewhere along the line, I decided I wanted to get into real estate. So I put myself through real estate school. So I would be working long shifts during the day and then going to real estate school by night. When I got certified, that's when I tendered my resignation at my job. And I started looking for opportunities in real estate.
And this in America still?
All in the US. And then I transitioned into real estate sales. It was a nice little setup. I was closing 5-6 deals a month. I was killing it, but I was very young. I was probably like 22, 23.
Wow.
So I didn't actually have the financial literacy to understand what you do. Imagine the money at that time, you're making your closing deals and your commission check is $6,000, $7,000. The first thing you think is buy a car.
Oh, the shoes.
Outfits, So I think I made the typical mistakes that somebody would make if they come into that kind of money. Also taking into account that, there's a lot of struggle happening as well around you, and also in Zim and all of that. So you're really trying to kind of show up and show off and all of that. And then the pivot happened is I had a major car accident in 2004.
In the States?
Yeah, again in the States. Shattered my back, my pelvis on both sides. The recovery was a complete riot.
What happened?
I was coming from a work function, it was raining. And then the car aquaplaned and smashed into a concrete wall and then got hit by more traffic. And that was on, I remember, December 4th, 2004. Yeah. It was a mess. And then my dad sent my mom because my brother called and said, I can't bop her because I couldn't walk. So I had to start learning the whole rehab. So there were so many points in my life that were pivotal moments that I think have hugely contributed to the resilience that I have now, because I've seen the hand of God in so many ways. I don't like to use the word luck. I feel like it's grace. And I think sometimes we don't talk about the ugly truths, right? But there's a lot of ugly truths in my life. There's a lot of things that have happened. And yeah, it's that sent me on the pathway to coming back home. 2007 is when I landed in Harare on the 27th of January. I remember my dates very well.
You left your brother there?
He came with.
Oh, he came.
He never wanted to be out there. It was kind of like he felt a sense of I have to go to school, but he never really got into being out there.
But tell me, so first of all, arriving in the States straight from high school, how was that transition? And then now coming back in 2007, how was that transition?
Culture shock all the way. I think there's a lot of things that stand out, and in my very first book, I talk about these things. When I left Sim, I had hectic teen insecurities. And then all of a sudden, I arrive in Atlanta, which is like, Black Mecca, Black excellence Mecca. And all of a sudden, people are saying, "Oh my God, you beautiful queen! Say something to me in African." They say these one-liners. But I was really hugely fascinated by seeing so much. I had never seen Black people with blue eyes. I had never seen mixed hair. I had never seen a Mexican person. So the multiracial, multicultural dimension beyond what I had experienced with international students living with us. I had never seen it on a more broader scale. Being in class with somebody from Barbados, or being in class with somebody from Puerto Rico, or one of your friends who's Zimbabwean dating someone from Korea. Like, I'd never experienced that. I think there was it was heavy on the culture shock. And because I grew up in a very conservative setup, we had a lot of exposure, but we were raised quite conservatively. I think it was too much.
The protection.
It was too much. Yeah, I think, it was a shock. Everything was a shock. And I think that's kind of what then sets you on the path of trying to figure out who you are in that world, and also seeing people that maybe you were in school together, now we're all converging and going to different schools and whatever. And now we're beginning to chart our own pathways. Some of us are beginning to make crazy mistakes or making poor decisions, but the notion of a poor decision is subjective, So, yeah, I think it was a culture shock. And then the return 7-8 years later was equally a culture shock, because now I'm completely different. My formative years as a young adult, I've seen many things. I've worked many jobs. I have a completely different way in which I see and visualize it. So I think I came back kind of very idealistic. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then the environment was like, please,
you're crazy.
Stop playing. So it was tough. It was really difficult for me to get back into it. I remember
the environment was like, sit down.
It was calm down. Because my head was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to, I'm a realtor. I'm going to just getting with Pam Goldings or whatever, these, real estate companies, the thieves or whatever. And then you realize, well, people don't buy and sell houses in a hurry over here. People generally live in the same house for 30, 40, 50 years. So there's no one moving 6, 7 units a month. There was none of that. So I then made a decision to pivot. I wanted to pivot into tourism because I said to myself, I want to work in a job that's pretty. I don't want to feel like I'm in a desk in a cubicle. I was very clear about that. And then you can say I always curated my life. I'm very clear. If this, I don't like this. I don't want to be in a little office with no with like a window. I want something that's very.
When did you make that kind of when did you make that decision? Like consciously make a decision to
when
say
I came back. When I came back, because I was also very limited in the US. The issue of papers and things like that, right? You have this visa, so you can do this, but you can't do that. So there was a limit. There was a very obvious limit to how far I could go. So the decision to make to come back home was also founded on the fact that I felt like in all of the different moments, I didn't know that I knew who I was. I felt like I got sort of lost, and I wanted to come back for that grounding. And because I was raised in a very grounded family setup, I felt like this is where I'm coming back to my wellspring, right? But I come back. And, I've been living by myself for 7 years. It's a curfew. Mom's is calling at 3. She's like, where are you? It's getting late. Yeah, just like, what up? I just like, and I remember Dad sitting me down and saying, in this house, if you want, we'll let you go out with your friends, but you can only go out one day of the week. And I'm like,
you can do it by yourself for like 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's when you're crawling into the house at 6 o'clock in the morning from City, right? And then you come back and then like, no, at 10 o'clock, my moms will be calling you. Like, It's just like, what is going on? So that was a huge shock for me. But even beyond that was everybody that you grew up with, everybody's left, right? So you're coming back and there's, who's this person you've never been around? I was one of those that was away for years.
And you went so young.
Yeah. So you're coming back and now you're like, who's this? And I remember my cousin, CJ, she's the one who was like, I've got some friends who are there. Let me introduce you to some of my people. And they became my tribe because of the relationship they had with her. She was overseas and they were like, no. So my cousin is there. She's just gotten back. She's got no friends, guys. Can you take care of her? And that became my tribe. That would be my weekend squad, would hang out or whatever. But there were still those rules. One weekend, one day a week.
That you can go out.
Yeah. So if there's 3 parties,
you have to choose.
And now everyone doesn't understand you're in your 20s and you're trying to get home. Like, what is all this, So it was a lot. It was that. And it was also coming back to like heavy, I want to use the term, I'm using this term very loosely, religious wave. So we're all going to cell group and we're all going to these women's meetings. So I felt like I was in a church building all of the time. If I wasn't with my friends. So imagine the contradiction of Saturday to Pablo's, Sunday to OJ church. Do you know what I mean? Which is no problem, right? But I think for me at that time, I really was trying to find my way and find where I was going to fit in. And I'm going to job interviews and they're telling me, you're not going to stay around for long. We want to hire you. We think you're great, but we don't think you're going to stay. So we'll call you again. Next month, there was one organization that called me for 5 interviews. And by the time I got to number 3, number 4, they were like, we just want to check, but are you still around? You understand? So that does something to your self-esteem.
You can imagine.
Yeah, because now you're like, okay, what is this?
What are you doing for money at this time?
I had a bit of saving. But then I'm also coming back to the chaos of Zim at points. 2007, 2008.
Awful year. Yeah.
It was lots, right? I eventually landed a job that took me to Vic Falls, and I felt like it was a beautiful year because it shut out the noise. It was just work, nature.
Based in Vic Falls.
I was based in Vic Falls, and I loved that because I was walking to work and I fell in love with nature again. And there was the quietness of not being in a city and that rush of being in Harare, that rush of always having to be on, always hunting. Vic Falls, I felt at the time, was very insulated from the economic situation. We got paid. We were given company housing. So obviously we didn't have rent. We were given food hampers. That's what's getting at the house. You'd be like, big rice, if you want to go, if you have an off day, you take a drive with your friends to Kasane across the border for a day trip. So that year was good for me. It just brought me back down to kind of grounding me and just, finding my feet. And I feel like even in that season, I really grew spiritually. I just everything calms. The raging storms within sort of calmed. Yeah. And then Metz, who became the husband. We were in Zim for maybe a year and a half before we went to Zambia 3.5 years, and then we moved to the UAE.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What made you move to Zambia then to UAE?
It was hectic. You don't know, you've got a brand new baby and you're selling fewer coupons. Apa, your title, you're a director, Kobasa. But that's the hustle of those days, right? I was working for a prolific family in Harare, and then I was expecting. And I remember going into a meeting in one of the big buildings in the city, and then coming from the meeting, and then I collapsed. But the typical prego things. And the husband was like, nah, yeah, we're not doing this. So we had our daughter, and then we left when she was 3 months old. It was just a desire to just self-actualize. We just wanted more for ourselves. So we just got on that pathway to...
And you just went and, I mean, I always ask people who live, what makes you then say, we're going? You up and go, do you investigate the place first? Or do you just get on a plane and just go?
No, I think for that to work, you have to be a chancer. I think you also have to be with somebody who has that sense of, if we die, we die. Do you know what I mean? You have to be quite maverick, because moving anywhere is not easy. Creating a system and a community around you is really difficult in the diaspora. Nobody talks about how lonely it can be. If you don't intentionally cultivate relationships abroad, it's a very, very lonely life. It can be very lonely. It can be very busy with mundane tasks and the rudimentary stuff. You wake up, you go to work. And for some folks in Europe, they can speak to you doing shift work and what you're sitting on the train for hours, all of those things, right? So nobody talks about how long it actually takes before you settle. And I think that would help a lot of people if we talked about the complexities of being a migrant or an immigrant somewhere else or living in the diaspora. It's not easy. It looks colorful. We look really cute on Facebook and all of that and Instagram, but most people, dare I say, most people are on the struggle bus. Dare I say, yeah, and most people are on the struggle bus.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then you're in Zambia for 3 years. So then you up and start again.
Yes, I hated Zambia. I hated that season completely.
Really? Why?
To be very honest, I was a new mom. I couldn't work, and I was home with the baby. So I loved nurturing my babies, but I'm not that type of woman who can just sit with their hands folded. So I really struggled with that season. I hated it. Can't talk about this. It was just like, it's the worst. So the move to the UAE was like a new breath of fresh air. And it was also the speed that I had been used to having come
in the States and moving to Dubai now.
Yeah, I felt like at that time Zambia was 10 steps back behind Zim. Even though we were in trouble, I just felt it just wasn't my jam. I just really struggled with it. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all.
And then you go to the UAE. What did you get into initially?
Initially, I was that stay-at-home mom. Stay-at-home mom. The spouse has a big job. I've got staying in a fancy tall building in an expat community, and you've got your little buggy, and you're like a Starbucks Pilates mom, as it were. With your little cute outfits, and you take the babies to school, and all of that. And then I think when my son turned about 18 months, I was ready to get back and get to work. I just didn't know what I was going to do because I had been out of the workforce for so long with the children.
So how did you break back? Usually being in a foreign country, you've moved to a foreign country.
Yeah.
You haven't been working. Yeah. So how did you break into, because I'm just thinking of maybe another stay-at-home mom who's probably now thinking, I want to get back into the work. How did you get yourself back into the work environment, and what did you get into?
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with my dad, and I talk about this all the time when this question is asked. I asked my dad, what do you think I'm good at? Because I knew.
Why your dad?
Because my dad taught me to think like a dude, and men don't have, they don't think of their limitations. So I think he just kind of taught me to just, he's always been like my big cheerleader. And my mom is the nurturer. So she nurtures the feminine side of me. But my dad is like whatever you want to do.
You can do it.
You can do it. There's no limits. You're doing great. It's a setback. Let's put on our shoes. Let's go. So you need that energy when you don't know what's going on. And I was at that space where I haven't been working for a very long time. I've been at home with children, lunch boxes and diapers and wet wipes and yogurts for 5 years. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, who am I? You know, the last time I was working was in Zim. Now, 2 countries later, I don't even know where I fit in. And he said, you're really good with people and you're really good with communication. Try PR. And I said, oh, okay. So I literally went online, started looking for PR jobs, packaged my little CV, you know, got called into an interview maybe within the first 2 weeks of sending out. I remember going into the mall to buy my first suit. I hadn't worn a suit in years. In years. Buying my first pair of heels. I haven't worn heels in years.
Zinc flops and tackies.
Tackies and flip-flops and freaking Crocs or whatever, right? Sweatpants, maybe a cute little summer dress, but I haven't worn just everything down to I need new earrings. Do you know what I mean? Went into the interview. And
how was that? That first interview after so many years.
Oh, it was. I think I just went in there again with that eye for day. Like, what do I have to lose? So I think they really liked my personality. They could not figure out where I was going to fit into the ecosystem. So they were just like, oh, you know, it's nice to meet you, whatever. I got a call the day later to say, we need for you to do this assessment, you know, writing assessment, whatever, because it was for a job with an agency. And did the writing assessment. I get a call to come in. We really like you. What kind of money are you looking for? And I said, make me an offer. Because in my head, I thought I might say this number. I don't even know
what people are getting.
Asking. Yeah. So I was like, let me not give a number because maybe I'll downplay myself. Or maybe they'll be like, she's playing, right? So I just said, no, make me an offer and I'll consider it. I did it with the most swag. Guys, you will not see me suffer. You will not see me looking like I got no idea. I will churungu my way out of it. So I was like, oh, you know, right? And then they made me an offer 3 times the number I had in my head. So I was like, oh, guy. And I remember getting the offer, calling my mom and saying, Mom, I need help. I need a nanny now for the kids. Because at that point, my daughter was 5, my son was 2, and I was it. So now we're running around looking for a nanny. She sends someone from home, settle in. I start cruising to go to work. My mom actually came to the UAE for 30 days while we were trying to sort out the whole nanny thing, you know, and transition the babies to the nanny and all of that. And I started cruising, and I cruised, my guy. Like, if I tell you that you become so brazen because in every single room, you're the only black woman, you're the only black person in parts. And this is years ago in Abu Dhabi where we were not that many as far as being African. A lot of my clients were government clients. I walk into the room and I speak. Sound big. I look at him.
Looking like the lifting.
You know, so she's the one who wrote that press release. So you can see their faces. You can see people say, oh, nice to meet you. So where are you? Nigerian? Are you American? No, neither. You know,
Zimbabwean.
I am. And I'm grateful because God just opened doors. But I also worked hard. It was hard work to build myself to
build your personal brand.
Yeah, I did. I did. And I was going through so much, even personally, just tried to balance and manage being a young mom and all this, you know, your marriage and all of that stuff. Yeah, it was a lot. It was demanding.
Tommy, you know, I'm thinking of all that. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with my niece, and she was talking about the transition from Zim. And then you know how we grew up here, very sheltered, like you're saying, very sheltered. Tommy, one of the things that were shocking when you get into corporate, either when you're in the States or even in Dubai, as an African child or an African girl, talking to your bosses, what are one of the things that were jarring, that you found were jarring? Looking at how we grew up here, conservative, and now working overseas. What were some jarring things that...
I think, you know, the notion of this, sir, ma'am, that is just too much. Halas, we're here for the job. Okay? So I loved the fact that over there, everyone is by first name basis. There's no, oh, Mrs. Mahaka, oh, ma'am. All of that is, I feel like it creates so many walls between us. And in a society that is as multi-gen as it is, you know, what are we doing with all of these things? And I get that sometimes I think a big part of even just the difficulty in me getting a job when I first came back is you're coming with these titles that you're coming from the US or England with whatever. And then you come here and, they're like, I'm a greater director at this age. No ways. She has to wait in line. He has to wait in line. So you're now working with folks who are 30, 40 years your seniors. The world is moving faster than they can comprehend. We're supposed to work together. And then we've got, the clash of the baby boomers meets the millennials meets the Gen Zs right now, right? And that's a whole thing. So one of the things that I loved was that everything is it's flat. It doesn't, I would get a call from the director general of some government entity at midnight because I have a deliverable. It needs to be done by 8 a.m. Sorry to call you late, Nyenge, but we need this. It needs to be done. When can I get it? And at 3 a.m., he'll be up waiting. He's the top of the chain.
Wow.
You see what I mean? So what do you look like saying, I'm sleepy, I'm tired. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of the thing is you always have to, if you want to make it out there, wherever your out there is, you have to go over and above. And then as you get better, as you get your feet more grounded into that space, you can now begin to dictate what over and above looks like. Do you see what I'm saying? So my life now is very much curated to what I want. It's a literal merge of the things that I'm passionate about. But I had to go through all of these stages and go through all of these difficult times before I could get here. I had to go through many, many no's. I had to be told, I had to go through the trenches for me to get here. So you have to pay your dues. It's not easy. We have to pay our dues, but it also doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to be that hard, because I think sometimes there's an expectation for maybe the older generation for us to really be in the trenches before we see success. And I don't know that our generation can resonate with that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So now you've done all this. You've now really dug in the trenches. You've now found your way back.
Yeah. And
then how do we now get to where you are today, traveling and curating all these amazing things that you're doing now?
Yeah.
How did you get into
So the reality of it is, even as I was working hard, there was a certain inherent desire for more. I can honestly sit here now and say, in those years, was I happy? Nah. I feel like I've found me now. I feel like my journey of learning how to curate and giving myself permission. Giving myself permission, because we ask for permission, and a lot of times when we ask for permission, we're told no, or it's not possible. You don't have enough qualifications. You have these people are in front of the chain, they're your bosses. So by the time you want that, all of those things, I left corporate at what I thought was the pinnacle. I was head of PR for Ferrari World. So I felt like after that, as an African woman in the UAE, and there's amazing people that are doing great things that are way much higher up the echelons of power in their spaces. But for me, in the realm that I was in, I felt like I wanted to do something that would just pay homage to the many sacrifices that have been made for me. And also remembering the cheering, the cheering. I get a lot of cheering and just, you got this. You've got this gift, you've got this innate gift to do this, you've got this innate talent. There's a point where you have to listen to that inner voice. But also, if people are telling you that you're amazing at a thing, there has to be a point where you listen, because sometimes we get stuck in apologetic.
That's why you are so true.
So apologetic. Oh no, sure, I So now when people say to me, Yvonne, you're pretty cool, I'm like, yeah, I think so. I think so too. But I will tell you, I never felt that way 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was working through stuff and trying to figure out what all of this means. And I don't have it figured out still, but I certainly don't. I see life as a limitless canvas.
Wow.
For me right now, and I think travel has a lot to do with it. I spend a lot of time alone, so that allows me to really move the pieces around in my head. I also lean into the many, many, many miracles I feel from my life. So it's always like, if God had me then, he's not going to let me down now. I also live by the mantra of daily bread. So I might need X number of dollars right now, but I know that I'll get what I need for the day to do what it needs to do. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah. There's just so much happening. Folks are hurting. We don't tell each other the truth. And I opt to not live that way. I would just rather be like, my guy, yeah, the thing is tight, eh? So what are we going to do? What do we do? Or what are you thinking? Because maybe talk to me about where you are at, and maybe I can tell you what happened to me, and maybe somewhere you might find your
middle ground.
Certainly very thankful for quality people in my life. I have quality human beings in my life. They have gotten me through some very difficult, traumatic seasons in my life. A big part of my journey now is navigating my way through some level of trauma. And I love that I can actually say, when all said and done, you're not looking like you struggle, Yvonne. You're not looking like you fight. You're not coming out of there with bruises. You're bruised, but nobody can tell. And it's not that I'm going around hiding it. It's just that I'm actually, a big part of it is I talk through my stuff. And what you see with Yvonne is what you get. There is no filter. There will never be a personality that is what you see even on social media is how I
am.
Maybe the only difference would be, obviously with everybody, you read the room, but on digital platforms, it's my space. So I get to do what I want, right? But I value relationships. Being a mother is the best gift ever. Seeing my parents proud of me is particularly heartwarming, and they get excited to when we talk about whatever. But I have really quality people in my life.
And I think that's so important. And one thing that you say, that what you see is what you get. I mean, what was interesting is that obviously, just like now, social media world, we met on social media. We started talking on social media. And then this year, beginning of this year in Dubai, we actually said, for what I thought was going to be, we thought it was going to be like, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, And it turned out to be hours of like,
brunch and drinks.
Yeah, such amazing, deep conversation. Yeah. And I think that's what I loved. And I think that authenticity is so great, because if you're so authentic online, when you then finally meet with people, they're not too far off from what you see.
Yeah, I think you have to give yourself a chance. And at the end of the day, there's so much going on that doesn't even matter. Do you know what I mean? What really matters? So I got to a point where I was like, if I'm going through a crisis, guys, I'm not the only one. And also from sharing my story with special people, obviously the trust component is very, very important. You've got your inner tribe, your inner circle that you can talk through. You'll be amazed at how much we might know each other for 20 years. But there's that one thing that you've been battling with, that I've been battling, and we've never shared between us, right? And I see that when people talking about challenges with parenting, challenges with marriages is a big one, relationships, the dating scene, the corporate ladder, ageism in the corporate space, all of those things. There's so many different religion versus spirituality, belief systems, culture. What is culture? What's your culture? What's my culture? What is our culture? So there's so many different things. And at the end of the day, when you put your head on your pillow at the end of the day, that last 30 seconds before you fade, I have to be good with me. I have to be good with me.
Which is very important.
So I'm intentional about I have to be good with me. And that means having conversations like, today was a dud, hey? Today was an absolute dud. Or today was actually pretty cool. Or it was a regular day, but there's so much beauty around me. So, it's really about wanting to find out more and discover and unpack some of these things for yourself, and have open conversations about and accept that we're all not the same. We all have different experiences, different traumas, different recovery mechanisms, different coping mechanisms, support systems differ. But you have the power to decide.
Absolutely.
You have the power to decide what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you.
I love that. And just to follow on that, just to close us off, I wish we had so much time. I just want you to give me 5 life lessons from, especially your transitioning from Zim to going overseas, the corporate ladder, and then finding you, finding Nemo, finding Yvonne.
Finding Yvonne.
Just 5 life lessons.
I think put yourself first. I've learned that in the past 3 years, specifically the past 3 years, and those that don't know. You put yourself first, because when you show up for yourself, you can show up so much more for the people that you really love and care about. So put yourself first. That's number 1. Number 2, don't compromise on the things that you really feel deeply passionate about, or the things that you feel are, this is important. You know how sometimes we know that this is not what we like, but we just carry on. And that's where the permission piece comes into play. Are we giving ourselves permission? It's going to be no, yes, maybe later. It's going to be one of those things. Or hold, whatever. It's going to be one of those things. It's never going to be a spectrum from here to 100 of different possibilities. So I think that's super important. Just don't compromise on things that you really deeply believe in. Trust your instinct, that very first thing that comes into your mind. And I can speak about this from relationships. I can speak about this as you raise children, for people who've got children. If there's something that's out of whack, don't ignore it, because what you're doing is you're cultivating a longer period before you actually, it's going to just take you longer to recover when you eventually get the truth, because the truth will come. Okay. Number 4, life lessons. Nurture relationships. So critical. And I think mature relationships understand that Nyenge and I don't have to talk every day. We can talk once in six months, but that 10 minutes that we talk, or that hour, or that 5 hours, is what it needs to be. So I think we shouldn't put boundaries on we shouldn't
Just really.
Yeah, just, nurture relationships, build them, respectful relationships, understand and meet the people where they are, and allow people to meet you where you are. So for me, in parts of my healing journey from the stuff that I've been going through over the past couple of years, is acknowledging, Kuti, I'm crumbling. I'm not okay. And when you tell somebody I'm not okay, you're also giving them an opportunity to also minister to you. They might very well be the person that will minister to you. I remember calling a friend, felt strongly in my spirit to call her. And I said, hey, babes, how are you? And she said, I'm not okay. How many times do your people tell you, I'm not okay? So I was like, what's going on? And she just poured out whatever was going on in that sense. But the fact that she was open enough to say, it wasn't the typical, everything's cool. I'm doing, no. She was just like, nah, I'm actually struggling, guy. I'm not happy. I can't put my finger on it, because you're not always going to know what's wrong with you. Sometimes it's just life is lifing. Sometimes it's triggers. Sometimes it's past trauma that is resurfacing as something else. Sometimes it's real life issues, I've given you how many? 4?
4. You're on your last one now.
12, guys. Explore, hey? You don't need to have a plane ticket. You don't need to have fuel for your car. You can jump on a bus. I'm saying this because of the things I've done. Yeah. Just don't take off. My dad always says, and my dad always says, don't think outside the box. Remove the box completely. Just throw it out. So for me, even with all the trips that I do, I don't start the year knowing them. I just get a call. Oh, Yvonne, is this? Would you keen? Yeah, sure, let's do it. And, I spell out what my ask is. And if it feels right, I go for it. I don't start thinking, oh, there's not enough there's money, what? And then it was it'll figure itself out. We're cruising. We're cruising. Okay. Find our way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Yvonne, I love those life lessons. And it's just been so interesting, and just your energy is amazing. I mean, what you see on social media is who you are. Yeah. And I have some fun questions before we finish our program. So, your favorite color and why?
I think red is my thing right now. It's just saucy.
Saucy.
Yeah, it's just silly. So I like a nice red. But I think maybe If it's just one color, that's a tough one.
Or even a few.
I think it depends. So right now I'm in an interesting blue era. I don't know what's happening there, but I'm finding a lot of cool blue stuff. My nails will almost always be red. Of late, my lippy will almost always be red. I like my life quite simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things. I like things to be functional. I like things to be lean. And that red is that thing that makes it give it the pop of color. Yeah.
Nice. And your favorite animal and why?
Oh, the lion. That's the Yashumba.
Love the lion.
Yeah, the lion. I think the lion is just the lion. It's just a beautiful animal to watch. So you see when I'm like, guys, there's lions roaring outside. I'm very happy. I love them. They're just beautiful.
It's the best movie you've watched. All-time best movie.
Love Jones. I know that's like old school, right?
I know, right?
Okay. Love Jones.
And if today was your last day on earth and you're about to transcend to heaven, wherever, what is the one thing that you'd say, you know what, God, I'm ready to come because I've done what?
I've done what you asked me to do. Yeah. I really believe that I am intentional about if he says do this. I don't always get it right. Sometimes I'm kicking and screaming. I think where particularly I was a strong assignment, I did everything that I was asked to do. And sometimes doing everything is not enough. So from that, I've learned that if it's not enough, it means there was a lesson even in there for me. You know? And and that's a tough one to accept, to say you can do everything and it not be enough. So you can raise your kids in the most perfect way in your books, and they make mistakes that will shatter you, or they will just leave and never come back. You can be the most faithful, loyal wife and your husband be on the streets. Okay? You've done everything you know how to do, which is why I circle it back to you. You bring it back home to you, because that's when you start to establish what works and what doesn't work. And when you're operating from a knowledge, an acknowledgement of this is what works for me, this is what, it just makes things, guys, no is a perfectly complete answer, you know, and people might not like you for it. Even your kids might hate you when you are disciplining them and all of that, but it'll come around. Yeah, life is like that. It's full circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our last question, if we were to, I mean, you travel a lot. If we are packing our bags right now, where are we going?
Locally.
Anyway, where do you want to go? Where are we going? We've packed our bags and we're like, okay, we're ready to travel. Where are we going?
Do you know? Only one.
One place.
I found Mauritius very special. I thought it was quite special. One, I'm a huge nature lover. Two, it's heavy on the multicultural scene. There's no indigenous Mauritian. I did not know that until I was there. So I thought that was really fascinating to see to see a Chinese man with blue eyes and black hair. Like that was like, wow. You know, the landscapes, I'm huge on nature ops, the beaches, the food, and just how mellow it is. I like mellow. That's why I'm in the bush so much.
I know it makes a lot of sense. So to close us off, what is your one last message to our viewers?
Live, guys. Live. Your definition of living and mine are not going to be the same, but you really have an opportunity every day to choose or not choose. Everything is hard. So choose your heart. Which one? Your heart. Choose your heart. Everything is hard.
Oh, wow.
It is. It's hard.
Yvonne, we could have gone on and on and on. I still have so much, and I know my
producers like for part 2.
Yeah, we have to come back.
2025.
We have to do 2025 and do a full, you know. So to our viewers, as we're closing out, as you're going into the week, please remember to live. I heard Yvonne said, live. Find your live, whatever live means to you, and go and do it this week. So I'll see you next week. Have a fantastic week. Bye.